Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a May reading wrap up. I know I literally only posted one video in May. May was such an insane month, but I did get quite a bit of reading done this month. I don't have any physical copies of books to share with you today because I actually got a free 3-month subscription of Amazon Kindle Unlimited. So I've just been reading all my books on Kindle. We're going to talk about them today. I had a pretty decent reading month. I read some really good books and then I read some really bad books, and I DNF'd quite a few books that we are going to talk about today. I actually have no clue how many books I read this month, so we're going to find out together. I have my coffee because I'm so exhausted. I got off of work and I'm filming this and I'm so tired right now, but we're going to push through and do this today. Let's go into my Goodreads. Also, if you ever want to follow me on Goodreads, I always have it linked in my description. I will friend anyone if you friend request me. It might take me a couple of days. I'm not really good with keeping up to date with anything on my phone, but I will add you back on Goodreads if you are wanting to keep up with what I'm reading in real time. I unfortunately did start the month off with a DNF. I had gotten this book from my library and it had been one of those things where I was lapsing my hold and giving it to the next person in line for 5 times at this point that I just wanted to read it, get it off of my TBR, but I did not like the writing. This is The Clinic by Kate Quinn. I was so excited for this book. I think cover-wise it looks so interesting and it is such a beautiful looking thriller. This book is about a rehab facility. We have our two main characters. One of them is a famous, I believe she's an actress, and she is in this rehab facility, and the other one is her sister. She finds out through the news that her sister has died and she doesn't believe it because they are saying that it is a suicide, and she just knows that that is not the case and that can't be true. I DNF'd it on page 168. I did not like the writing. I did not really like the plot or the characters. It just was a bad book. It was putting me in a mood of I don't want to pick up any books, and I'm at the point I don't even want to push myself through books and finish them just to say I finished them. I'm just gonna DNF books, which is why I DNF'd a lot of books this month. The next book that I read this month is probably one of my favorite books that I've read this year, and it is Funny Story by Emily Henry. Now, I've heard a lot of people say that they don't like this book, they don't like the romance, they don't like the main male character. I actually really liked the main male character, Miles. He is genuinely the type of guy that I would have a crush on. He's just so cute. In this book we have Daphne and Peter, who are engaged to each other, and then we also have Miles and Pietra, and they are engaged to each other, and Peter and Pietra are childhood best friends. And so Peter and Pietra end up breaking off their separate engagements. They end up together. Our main characters, Daphne and Miles, they end up moving in together, and it is kind of like a forced proximity. I don't want to say it's definitely not enemies to lovers. They don't like each other, they don't get along in the beginning, and then they obviously end up loving each other. It's a romance. I don't know why a lot of people didn't like it. I know a lot of people just didn't like Miles as a character, but I really didn't mind him as a character, and I really enjoyed the book. I read it pretty fast. That was a 5-star, and then that being a 5-star kind of up the rest of my reading month. Then this is the part of the month where I started my Kindle Unlimited subscription, and I just kind of started reading random books. So the first book that I read was Best Served Hot by Amanda Elliott. Now, this isn't a book that I DNF'd, but I'm going to be honest with you, I think I skimmed the last 80 to 100 pages. I could not care less about this book. Genuinely. It is about our main character who, she's a food blogger, and she really wanted this position at this prestigious magazine to be a food reviewer or a food critic, and the main male character ends up getting that job. They end up having to work together and they do some food reviews, and through reviewing all of these different restaurants they spend a lot of quality time together. But that being said, I did not feel the chemistry with the characters. I found the main character really annoying in this book. I ended up giving this a 1-star. I didn't like it. I did not like the writing. I did finish the book, but I did skim the end, and I'm gonna be so real with you. I had to look at Goodreads to remember what this book was about because I forgot it. Nothing stuck. Next, I read The Agathas. This is a YA mystery thriller. Our two main characters, Iris and Alice. Both of our main characters are in high school. Iris is Alice's tutor, and that's kind of how they know each other. Alice's friend goes missing, and the police are very quick to kind of write it off as an accident. The girls think something worse happened. They the entire time are trying to get the police to go search for this girl while she is missing because Alice, she had something happen to her in the town earlier in the book. Police don't take them serious. It's a very interesting book. I liked it. I think obviously from how poorly I just explained the book, it just didn't stick with me. I gave it a 3-star. It was fine. It was a fun read to pass the time, but again, it's not something that stayed with me. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about the book, and I will say the title, The Agathas, is based off of one of the main characters loves Agatha Christie, and so they literally talk about Agatha Christie so much throughout the book. It was an alright book. I would recommend it if you are looking for some more YA thrillers or mysteries. I did enjoy it. Next is another DNF. Now, before I tell you what book that I read, I just need you to understand that I was doing this for scientific research. I read The Idea of You, which is that one Harry Styles fanfic turned movie. Listen, I don't have like Amazon Prime or Apple TV or whatever that movie is streaming on, and I kept seeing videos of the movie on my TikTok. I wanted to read the book to know what the heck it was about. That being said, this is about a boy pop star group. The mom of one of their fans goes to a concert and she ends up having basically like this love affair with the character who is basically Harry Styles, but the character's name is Hayes. I felt so grossed out the entire time that I read it. I DNF'd this book on page 154. I was trying my hardest to just get through it so that I could say that I finished it, but I had to DNF it. Anytime that the mom is with him, there's any smut scenes or just anything in general, she would always say phrases, "You little boy, like you don't know. Ugh, I'm so much older than you," because the age difference is like, I think she's like 40 something and he's 18 freshly, or like 19. He can't legally drink alcohol in the States. It was one of those books that definitely you could tell was a fanfic. I don't recommend it. Don't spend your money on it. But if you are curious, it is on Kindle Unlimited. The next book that I read is another book that like kept coming in on my library. When I tell you all of my holds for my library came in at the same time this month. So I read this. It is You Shouldn't Have Come Here by Geneva Rose. It is about this girl who goes on a vacation and she ends up kind of in this middle of nowhere house in an Airbnb where the guy who owns the house stays in the house while you're in the Airbnb too. It's very weird. I don't know. And I don't use Airbnb, so that might be normal. Not sure. It's dual POV and the POV of the guy is so weird and gross, and he made me so uncomfortable at first. This is a thriller. It's supposed to be kind of romantic towards like the middle end of it, and I didn't ever feel anything between the characters, and the ending of this book genuinely made me mad. It wasn't good. Then I read another book that was on Kindle Unlimited, and I saw this on a TikTok. I will always fall victim to TikTok book quote videos. Let me just say, I did delete TikTok because I was spending too much time on that app. But I read Heart-Wrenched by Kate Crew. Now this is a Hollow's Garage book. It's in an interconnected series, I believe. She knew the guy love interest back in high school, but they kind of were, I wouldn't say they were enemies, but they did not like each other for like a really stupid reason. This book takes place when they go off to college. They end up running into each other because she is walking home from a party and he is doing a street car race, and he basically almost hits her. So he ends up driving her home and she ends up working for him, and they grow closer. It's very much cars are important in the story. It's a romance story, but it is like very instant lusty. I want to say like within the first 50 pages they're already talking about like wanting to have sex. Like it was instant, and I did not like it. I'm a slow burn girl. I'm a closed door romance girl. I want the tension. I don't want any of the payoff. It was all right. I did enjoy the writing, and I did like the sort of found family vibes that the book does give. Next, I read another book by an author that I've actually read before, and I gave his other work a 5-star. Now, I read his other work back when I was freshly graduated high school. I think I was pretty new into college, and it is Matt Haig. I read The Midnight Library years ago, and I loved that book so much, and so I wanted to read another one of his works, and I read The Humans. This is about an alien who comes down to Earth, and you don't know why he's on Earth. He takes over someone's body. He is there for a specific mission, which you find out as you keep reading. But the book is kind of about what is the human experience? What does it mean to be human? And I love that about this author. I love their work, and there are some beautiful quotes in this book. I will say, I could see why people wouldn't like this book. It is technically classified as a sci-fi, but I would consider this more like a literary fiction, if anything. I gave this book a 2.5, which I know is pretty low, but for me, like a 2.5 is genuinely in the middle of the scale, and it just means like I read it. I didn't love it. I didn't like it. I'm kind of indifferent. I definitely didn't hate this book. I would recommend it if you like Matt Haig as an author. I know there are some people that really don't like his writing, so definitely skip out on this book if you don't like his other works, but I did enjoy it. I liked the story, and out of the books that I've already talked about, I do remember this story, which I forget the plot of every book the second I close the book, so that kind of does say a lot. I don't know what it is, but this month I was really in my like thriller mood. I've really been loving literary fiction this month, and I read another thriller. I found this book off of, I believe, Hallie Barber's YouTube channel, or Haley Barber. The book is Darling Girls by Sally Hepsworth. This book is about our three main characters who grew up in foster care. Please look into trigger warnings before you read this book. It is a very dark book. There's a lot of things that could definitely be triggering to people. They grew up kind of in an abusive foster care situation. Years later, when they're adults, the police come up to them because there were bones found under the home that they grew up in. This book, you follow past and present timelines. I'm not the biggest fan of that. I don't always love that, but I really do like when you get to the point of the book where things are starting to all come together, and the past and present timelines are very important for that. I did really like this book. It made me feel so dark and gross though, and I don't really ever feel like that a lot when it comes to thrillers. I'm pretty good at just reading them and understanding that it's just words on paper, but I felt so dark after reading this. I did give it a 2-star because, again, I hated the ending. It is really hard for me to give a thriller book a high rating because a lot of the times I don't like the endings. I think the authors kind of just throw away the whole book with a bad ending a lot of the times. This book is so good, and I wish I could read it again. So I filmed a video where I switched my screen time for reading time, and in that video I read the book 800 Grapes. I wish I articulated better how much I loved that book in that video. This book is by Laura Dave, and now I went into this thinking it was a thriller because this is the author of The Last Thing He Told Me, or something along the lines, which is a thriller book. But this is a book about a family who they live and grew up on a vineyard. In the first chapter of the book, we follow our main character who goes back home. She just went on this long road trip back home. You quickly figure out what she's kind of running away from and the problems back home that she's running away from. But at the same time, there are so many secrets and things that were happening back at the vineyard that she just didn't know about. And because of the way that it's kind of given a synopsis on Goodreads, I did think it was going to be a thriller, but it is just such a beautiful story about growing up, growing older. What does it mean to have relationships with different members of your family when you're all growing through different problems and communication errors, and just I loved this book so much, so much. There is a quote from this book that I literally posted it on my personal Instagram, and I think about it every single day. The quote says, "Maybe that was just childhood. You hurry up, pick the opposite path, try to make childhood end. Then as an adult, you have no idea why you were running away, what exactly you needed to so desperately get away from." And as someone who, as a child, I constantly felt this sort of pressure and like feeling of, I just can't wait to be 20. And I like, this might be so stupid and so unrelatable to some people, but I remember being a preteen and being a teenager and being like, I cannot wait till I'm 20 and I live on my own in a random city in my own apartment, and I can't wait to be an adult and do all these things. That quote just hit me so hard. That being said, this book is a 4.5. It's not a 5-star, but please, if you are going to read any book out of this video, read that book. It touched a part of me so deeply, and books like that really remind me why I love reading. Please read that book. It was so good, so good. I love that I did the swapping my screen time video, but at the same time, I wish that I could have made that book last longer because I read it within like one day. So good, so good. It's on Kindle Unlimited. Give it a chance if you've not read it. So I have 2 more books. One I read on Kindle Unlimited and then one that I listened to an audiobook of. So starting with the audiobook, this is kind of one of those self-helpy books. I started watching a YouTuber. Her name is Morgan Riddle. She posts like some F1 content, but she is a tennis wag, and honestly, forget the wag part. She's dating a tennis player. Who gives a fuck about the tennis player? She does a lot of fashion content, a lot related to tennis, which if you know, I've talked about it a lot recently. I grew up playing tennis. I've gotten into tennis a lot more recently. That's actually like something I do a lot now, is I'll go out to the tennis courts and just play. But I've been watching a lot of her content, and in one of her vlogs, she talked about this book, and it is The Mountain Is You. Something I feel like I don't really talk about a lot. I love a good self-help book because for me, self-help books are about the feeling you get out of it. It's not necessarily about the words that are on the paper. And so I wanted to read this book, but I didn't want to spend the money. I'm really trying to save money on books. And so I still had my Spotify like one audiobook kind of credit that they do. And so it's a 5-hour audiobook. Like, it is so fast. I think I listened to it on like 1.8 speed. And to be honest, this book just feels like a very positive, uplifting podcast. If you're going to read this book, listen to it as an audiobook. It is so good. I loved it. It made me really like kind of put into perspective a lot of the things in my day-to-day life that I do. A lot of this book talks about kind of victim mentality, but also being a self-sabotager and, you know, having all of these goals but never actually working towards it. This book, so good. I love self-help books. I'm gonna do a video maybe honestly this month of some of my like nonfiction book recs. I genuinely think books like this, I think every once in a while when I read them, it just kind of like snaps me back into my groove and what I need to be doing and put my head back on straight. So yeah, I really enjoyed that book. 4.5, not a 5-star. I kind of feel weird rating books like that because it's not, I feel like, a book that needs to be rated. 4.5, not a 5-star because there are some things in the book that I was kind of like, don't really care, but I was still listening to it. Really enjoyed that book. Would recommend it if you're kind of like in a funk and you need something to just kind of like snap you out of it and get you back motivated and ready to go. I finished my coffee. Let's finish this video. Lastly, I read another YA thriller, and this is None Shall Sleep. I am very surprised that no one really on BookTube has talked about this video, or at least I haven't really seen a lot of people talk about this book, not video. This is pretty much the Natural series, but it is actually a duology. I'm currently reading the second book, and let me just say, the first book is good. The second book is so much better. This, instead of how like the Naturals is an FBI program with a ton of teenagers, this is 2 teenagers. One of them is a person who survived a serial killer, and the other is this guy who he wants to be in the FBI in his future. They are college age, kind of similar to the Naturals. There is some pretty like dark and kind of gruesome things for this being a YA book that happen in this book. Those 2 main characters basically get recruited by the FBI to do interviews with teenage serial killers so that the FBI can kind of learn their mindset, but quickly, instead of working on cold cases, they end up working on an actual case. It is so similar to the Natural series. If you've read the Natural series and you really liked that series, which literally everyone did, that book series took BookTube by storm, definitely give this book a chance. I think you're really gonna like it, and again, on Kindle Unlimited. So yeah, those are all of the books that I read this month. I am looking forward to June. I'm really looking forward to a clean slate, some new reads. I don't really have a TBR for June. Again, I'm reading strictly on Kindle Unlimited because I'm trying to get the most bang for my buck of me having this free subscription. So let me know if you have any books that you would recommend that you know are on there, and I'll definitely try them out. But yeah, I hope you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Do not forget to subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.